We're going to dive deeper into the Canadian results here with my friend Ezra Levant from Rebel News. Ezra, great to see you. You actually have a glass half full interpretation of the Canadian election results. Tell us about it.
Thanks. I mean, you got to, if you're a conservative in a left of center country like Canada, you always got to be looking for the silver lining. And let me tell you what it is. The Conservative Party of Canada, led by Pierre Poilievre, got the highest vote count of the Conservative Party in a generation. The last time the Conservatives got this many votes, it was 1988. Trouble is, we have a multi-party system. It's not the U.S.-style two-party system. So Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative, ran a working-class Conservative campaign that focused on things like reducing immigration, reducing inflation, reducing the... It was actually something that I think American Conservatives would like. Trouble is, the left-wing parties all joined together. So Pierre Poilievre got about 41.5%. And you're thinking, well, that's terrible, because in the two-party American system, it would be. But believe it or not, that's the highest any politician has got in Canada in 30 years. But the Socialist Party fell down to 6%. All of it went to the Liberals. The Green Party did a trick. They canceled over 100 of their candidates to stop splitting the vote. So what happened is the Liberal candidate, led by a World Economic Forum board member named Mark Carney, he squeaked past Pierre Poilievre, and he formed a minority government. What does that mean? He didn't get most of the seats in the parliament. So there's a chance we'll be going back to the polls sometime this year. It's not a disaster. It feels bad because as recently as 4 or 5 months ago, the Conservatives were looking to cruise to victory with a majority. But I'll be candid with you, Charlie, and you know me, I'm the biggest Trump booster in Canada. Donald Trump's heckling and his banter about the 51st state, that spooked some people who had thin skin or didn't understand what to make of it. And I think that probably drove 5 or 10% over to the Liberals. So glass half full is best Conservative results in a long time. The new Conservative Party is very attractive to young people and working class people. The bad news is the Liberals squeak past them. And I hate to say it, it was that Trump banter that hurt some feelings.
Yeah, so let's dive deeper into this and examine it. So first, that sounds like it was a French playbook, where there was, meaning in the France they did something similar, where the liberal parties kind of all combined together. I have to imagine, though, it's just a little bit different than American politics, where was it not cost of living and mass migration and cultural cohesion that was a bigger issue? Was this really a referendum on President Trump externally? I mean, walk us into the elements here.
Well, there was a generational divide, which was so interesting. Historically, the Liberal Party gets the young voters. Justin Trudeau won in 2015, in part on his promise to legalize marijuana. Trudeau tried to come across as young and hip and cool, and he got the young vote. This time around, young people really tilted towards the Conservatives for the reasons you say. It's tough to find a house you can buy in Canada. Mass immigration has driven down wages and pushed up housing costs. So immigration was the subtle driver of all, not so subtle driver of all these things. Crime is there's a huge crime wave in Canada. In many ways, we're now actually more violent than the United States, which has never happened before. And finally, we have big pro-Hamas street marches, things that, I mean, occasionally you see them in the United States, but they're a weekly thing in Canada. So yes, immigration was at play, but it was a generational thing. Young people feel a little bit hopeless. They can't buy a house. They can barely afford to get ahead. And they see that mass immigration is driving those things. Whereas boomers and seniors, they've already got their home paid off. So they don't care if house prices rise. That's good for them. They don't really pay income taxes because they don't work anymore. And I think that they're oblivious to some of the street battles in Canada over race and ethnicity, diaspora politics. So the boomers and the seniors could afford the luxury political belief of being offended by Donald Trump. Like, imagine that is driving your vote for your prime minister. Who's gonna push back at Trump's heckles? That is not a serious reason to vote for someone, because that, like I say, it's a luxury belief you can only afford if everything else in your life is going right. Young people didn't really care about the Trump tweets, but boomers and seniors, especially liberal-minded boomers and seniors, they cared a lot.
So it's a luxury belief to be so offended at Trump that you can basically crap on your kid's future. And luxury beliefs are something we talk about a lot on this program. Okay, so you are rather hopeful, actually, about the future of Canadian politics based on your analysis and your interpretation. Just kind of let's take a step back. What does an election look like? Is there a lot of money being spent? How much money was spent on this? Was it campaigning across the country? I know that it was a rather truncated or a rather compressed election season. So educate us on what Canadian elections look like.
Canadian elections, there's a 5-week period where everyone goes full guns. Now, obviously, everything before that, there's sort of have the campaign in mind, but there's an intensity of those last 5 weeks. In Canada, the government has nationalized leaders' debates. So there was an official government-run leaders' debate halfway through, and typically people really pay attention to those. There is a lot of money being spent. Canada's about 1/10 the size of the U.S., and we probably had 1/10 the size of the budget. But the campaigns have their campaign jets, and it's all about IDing your vote and get out the vote. Obviously, a lot of the campaigning is digital. So it's very much like an American campaign. In fact, the Liberals typically have campaign advisors from the Democrats. Let me tell you a quirky thing. Mark Carney and another candidate named Evan Solomon, they're basically run by a globalist lobby group in New York called the Eurasia Group. It's sort of weird how that, it's in New York City, but it was sort of running the campaign for the Liberal Party in Canada. Justin Trudeau's former mentor works at the Eurasia Group, and that's where Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, his wife works. Like this little office in New York is basically being the puppet master for Canada. It's a little bit weird. There's a lot of foreign interference in our election, I should mention. In the last election, the Chinese Communist Party was found to be interfering in 11 different districts. This election, it was even worse. In fact, one candidate had to step down because he was a Chinese-Canadian candidate who said, if you kidnap my opponent and take him to the Chinese consulate, you'll get $1 million bounty. I know what I said just sounded insane, but he said it 3 times, and finally he resigned as the candidate to be replaced by another Chinese Communist Party candidate, a police officer, Chinese-Canadian police officer, who would attend Chinese Communist Party events in his police uniform, sing communist songs. Like the hand of China is very apparent in our politics. In fact, our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, you may know that he was the chair of Brookfield Asset Management, which is like a slightly smaller BlackRock. He's met with Xi Jinping. He's done huge business deals in China. He took a $250 million loan from China. So we have a real China problem in Canada. There are great, loyal, freedom-oriented Chinese Canadians fighting against that. But the Mark Carney government is as pro-China as you can get. Let me throw one last thing at you, Charlie. Canadian politicians were sort of heckling back at Donald Trump. I know you didn't hear it because it was for Canadian domestic consumption. It was sort of, can you prove who is the toughest to stand up to Trump? That was a campaign thing to juice the turnout that we talked about, those sensitive boomers and seniors. But last night, after the votes were counted, Mark Carney, the new Liberal Prime Minister, the former World Economic Forum board member, the former chair of Brookfield Asset Management, he takes the stage for his acceptance speech. Campaign's over now. Now he has to think like a prime minister. He goes extra hard at Donald Trump. He says that Canada and the US will never have the same relation again. He will reorient Canada. If he gets his way, he will realign us with communist China. So it wasn't just a campaign trick. It wasn't just a way, his anti-Americanism wasn't just a tactic. He deeply believes in it. This guy is the ultimate globalist. I think I told you before, he has 3 passports. He has a home in the United Kingdom, a home in New York City. I don't think he's actually been back in Canada for more than a few weeks. I flew to the Isle of Man 2 weeks ago because he had set up a shell company with a straw man director there. I don't even know what country he pays his taxes in. We are dealing with someone who truly is the World Economic Forum.
But I mean, just really quick though, and it's just, I have the 30 seconds. We'll pick it up after the break though. All of that is true. Then how was the Canadian polity so bamboozled by this guy? Is it because you don't have free speech and you don't have alternative media to be able to get this message out?
There's some anti-Americanism in Canada. Our media is so concentrated, it would be as if PBS was larger than all other media combined. That's our CBC state broadcaster. And I say again, despite all that, Pierre Poilievre did exceedingly well. It just wasn't good enough given the France-style trick you mentioned where they all unified behind the lefty. It was close, though. The Liberal only beat the Conservative by 2%. So don't write us off yet, Charlie. That's why I'm not gloomy. Glass half full. I think Poilievre will win it within the next year, and we'll be smiling again.
Okay, stay right there, Ezra. I have a lot more questions about Canada. You do excellent work, and check out Rebel News. What do we have, guys? Z Factor. Get a better night's sleep. I'll tell you, sleep is the X factor. It is, you could call it the Z factor. If you want to be able to have the schedule I have, you got to prioritize sleep. It's one of the reasons why I don't drink alcohol, and I'm very careful what I eat because it all points towards sleep. Sleep is the hidden ingredient. And a lot of people in this audience, you guys are probably not getting enough sleep, and you compensate with more accelerants and with more stimulants and with cappuccinos and lattes. And not good, guys. You are wearing down your adrenals. You're wearing down your cortisol. So get better sleep. Z Factor is 100% drug-free, so it's safe to take regularly. If you're looking for the right formula for better Z's, give Z Factor a try. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That is the number 1-800-4RELIEF. Go to relieffactor.com. Very rarely do we talk about how important sleep is for health. We'll talk about all the other stuff, exercise, supplements. No. Sleep, everybody, is that hidden ingredient. If you're not getting 8 to 9 hours a night, I encourage you to check out relieffactor.com. That is relieffactor.com for their Z Factor. It works. I get sleep, and that's how I'm able to do what I do. We'll be right back. The battle between good and evil seems to be escalating. It is easy to blame politicians, government, or poor leadership, but behind all of that is a spiritual battle. Pastor Alan Jackson's new book, Angels, Demons, and You, talk about the reality of this battle and the spiritual realm that exists around us. It has a real impact on us every day. As you read, you will discover that angels and demons are not imaginary, they actually exist. You can find them playing a variety of roles throughout the Bible, and they're still influencing the world today. We don't need to be afraid, but we do need to be aware and prepared. Angels and Demons and You is a phenomenal book. Angels, Demons, and You provides valuable insight, practical tools, and biblical truth to help you recognize the spiritual battle around us and become a difference maker in our generation. Find more from Pastor Alan, sermons, podcasts, and other thought-provoking teachings on his YouTube channel at Alan Jackson Ministries.
Think of how many counties are there in the country? Like 4,000? Okay. So you're going to add 4 rapists to every county in America. They voted for that. Just over, 3.5 murderers into every county, assuming they disperse them evenly. That hasn't happened, but you've dealt with enough of that. I've seen some of the stories from some of the small towns that are these perfect little Midwestern towns.
Whitewater, right, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
Is that not the most, by the way, Tom Homan, we got to get him on that whole program up there, right? I mean...
Better researchers than the CDC. Yeah, may not be saying much. It's the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. We have Ezra Levant in just a second, but On Thursday, we'll be at the University of California, San Diego. That's UCSD. We are closing strong in the beautiful state of California. So let's go through it. UCSD, Long Beach, then we have San Francisco State University, and then UC Riverside. That is 4 California stops in the next week. And so no excuse. If you guys are in California, you know people in California, and you want to come on by, we'd love to see you. These events are going super viral. They're making a big difference in the macro cultural war. In the macro culture war, making a massive and major and significant difference, and globally. I mean, we're getting messages from people in France, and we have a lot of Canadians that follow us. Free speech is our birthright, and I really want to drill that down with Ezra after the break. I hope all of you understand that the fact that we have free speech has allowed the Trump movement to ascend, has allowed the conservative movement to deepen. And Canada does not have free speech like we do. Ezra, they're trying to arrest him like every other day. And for that, we should thank the Lord. Free speech is our birthright. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. Stay right there. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. So, Ezra, I know I mentioned this previously, but I want to reiterate it. Can you talk and speak to the importance of what you wish you had as far as alternative media and free speech? What if Canada had so Canada's like the size of California. So just in California, imagine if you had free media, open media, alternative media, influencers, and laws that allow you to do those things. What would Canada look like?
It would be completely different. We are constantly fighting for even basic freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and it is a very costly battle because we do not have the First Amendment. We have something that's sort of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy version of the First Amendment, but it's subject to so many limitations. We rely on it to fight back all the time. I mentioned earlier that there's a leaders' debate that the government runs here. That's weird in itself. But why would Trudeau nationalize debates? The answer is to choose who gets to attend, including journalists. Twice, Rebel News was banned from attending, simply because they didn't like our conservative tilt. Twice, we managed to go to the federal court and get a court order allowing us in. So the freedom of speech is there enough that occasionally we can win, but we're always running to the courts because there's a political culture that doesn't value free speech anymore. We have things called the human rights commissions, which are nothing of the sort. They basically weaponize any complaints that you're making mean tweets. Justin Trudeau introduced a terrifying bill called C-63, the Online Harms Act, that would have made it literally against the law to hurt people's feelings. And truth is not a defense. Fair comment is not a defense. Religious conviction is not a defense. That bill was sort of evaporated by the election, but I believe Mark Carney is going to reintroduce it. Let me tell you, freedom of speech is the most important freedom because with it, you can fight to recover all the others. It's a little bit tough sometimes, free speech, because you have to give it to your opponent if you want it for yourself. So you really have to love it because we all don't like what our critics say. But in Canada, they're snuffing out free speech. Last point, Charlie. It's not just that they have a stick to beat people they don't like. They have a huge carrot for the journalists they do like. They have colonized the media. I mentioned what would it look like if PBS was larger than all media combined. That's what Canada is like. We have a state broadcaster here that has a larger staff than all private media combined. Imagine how that distorts the debate. And whatever private media that there is now gets about $30,000 per journalist yearly subsidy from the government. So they're all pulling for Team Mark Carney. There's really only a handful of independent journalists left. So I think in Canada soon there'll only be government-funded journalists or government-banned journalists. It is not a healthy state of affairs. Elon Musk, frankly, is the most consequential man in politics because he has strengthened our freedom of speech. And thank God Donald Trump won because he's fixing the censorship problem in social media, which benefits us up here in Canada. If Trump did not win, Rebel News would be out of business because Twitter and the free speech that's now seeping back into social media would be gone.
In closing here, are you guys going to give up? Is now this, hey, the Liberals won? What is the battle cry for the Canadian patriot? Because I just have such respect for you guys. Because even though that, people in California say, Charlie, it's so bad here. I said, no. Go to Ontario. Go to Toronto.
Yeah.
Go to Ottawa.
Yeah.
Are you going to give up? 1 minute remaining, Ezra.
No, I love this is my home. I mean, for generations, my family being here, this is my country. I'm not going to give it up without a fight. We fought during the COVID lockdowns, which were extreme up here. Remember the Canadian truckers?
Oh, of course
They
I do.
came and they broke the fever and they set an example for the world. And remember, no politician supported them. They didn't have a big super PAC behind them. It was grassroots people saying enough is enough. That inspires me, those truckers. So we're going to keep fighting. And again, I'm a glass half full guy. The Conservative leader of Canada got the highest vote that his party has received in a generation. I think that he'll break through next time. He's got a conservative working class coalition, including young people. It's pretty unique around the world. I think it can win. And I would just say to our American friends, don't give up on us. Don't annex us. You don't need to. You already have a free trade agreement that'll give you all the oil and gas and minerals you can buy. So you don't need to annex us. That spooked Canadians. That's frankly a reason why the Liberals eked out a win. But let's get back to being best friends. You can be Batman and we'll be Robin. We're the junior partner in the friendship. But let's be best friends again is what I have to say.
Ezra, God bless you, my friend. Hope to see you soon. It's a depressing picture from my view, but your optimism and positivity is remarkable and noteworthy. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.